Welcome into this evening edition of Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening. Got a fun show planned out for you guys. We're going to talk about the running back position. We were told going into the season that starting out, the reps would kind of be split 50-50. Well, we certainly didn't see that last week in Kansas City. Also, could Jermaine Burton's stock be rising? He finally got his first NFL reception last week in Kansas City. Obviously, there were some concerns with Burton regarding his professionalism, but when he gets out there, boy, he looks like a playmaker. So maybe his stock could be rising this year for the Bengals. Also, Orlando Brown Jr., playing that left tackle position for Cincinnati, is in some elite company. He's had a really good start to the 2024 campaign, which the Bengals really needed out of him. So we'll talk about that. Also, there are some renovation proposals to Paycor Stadium and the Bengals practice facility. To end out our show, we will show you guys a few of those images. So looking forward to that. But before we dive in, make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. We will have all of our Bengals Breakdown content posted to my Twitter page. Also, you'll find some Bengals highlights there as well. I have my own personal thoughts and opinions. Additionally, Boss has said got to get to 500 followers by the end of the month. We got a ways to go in order to make that happen. Today is September 18th. So help me out. Hit that follow button on Twitter at StoneShields_. All right, so these were how the snaps were distributed between Zack Moss and Chase Brown Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium. As you can tell, Moss had 80% of those snaps, and Chase Brown only had 20% of those snaps. It looks to me that Chase Brown just has a lot more pop than Zack Moss. Zack Moss has done a decent job for Cincinnati in these two games. He did have that touchdown against the Patriots that the Bengals so desperately needed, but when I see him out there are good things from a pass protection standpoint. Certainly not what guys like Samaje Perine or even Joe Mixon could do for the Bengals in the past, but he probably does that a lot better than Chase Brown. But Zack Moss, I think he feels more like a backup, and the upside to me just isn't there like I think it is with the Bengals 2023 fifth-round pick, Chase Brown. And again, he only got 20% of those offensive reps for Cincinnati in Kansas City. But when you see him out there, you always just feel like he has that burst, that potential firepower, that big play ability that Zack Moss just doesn't really bring to the table. And also in the screen game, I think Chase Brown has the ability to really break off some big runs for you and your football team. So I would like to see Chase Brown get more snaps. Again, Taylor said it would be kind of 50-50. Certainly last week it was not 50-50. But at some point, I feel like Chase Brown needs to be a guy that vaults himself in front of Zack Moss as that main back. So we will see if that changes on Monday night. But I think pretty much to the eye, it's pretty obvious that Chase Brown has a little bit more to offer, from a pop standpoint than Zack Moss does. Would really like to see him get more touches on Monday night. So do you think Chase Brown should get more snaps? Type A for yes or B for no in the comment section. It is the pinned comment of today's video. So if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down there and let us know what you think. All right, could Jermaine Burton's stock be rising for the Cincinnati Bengals? He played 10 snaps against the Chiefs and did have that bomb he caught down the sideline from Joe Burrow that really proved to be a big point in that football game. Obviously, it's been well documented, some of the concerns surrounding Jermaine Burton. Al Michaels threw it out there, oh, this guy might be sleeping in meetings. Again, that hasn't proven to be true or false, but the fact that he threw it out there certainly is noteworthy, and the fact that we saw him so late in those preseason games. A lot of telltale signs there, but one thing that cannot be mistaken about Jermaine Burton is he has some firecracker ability for you from an explosive standpoint as a receiver. He looks like an NFL receiver when he's out running around on the football field, just in terms of his speed, his physicality, and how he's able to really be physical against those cornerbacks. And I think We saw that with him in college, and I think it's really translated well to the NFL. So, if the Bengals are in a spot where T. Higgins, stays out with that hamstring issue, he could be a guy that could really take that next step for you if you're Zac Taylor and the Bengals offensive coaching staff, because the things that he can do, the upside with Jermaine Burton is really tremendously high. And he's really a big-time threat down the field, can really stretch the field. So he's a guy that I would like to see get more snaps. I don't think Andre Iosivas is necessarily a vertical threat like maybe some people thought. I think Iosivas is a great receiver. 6th-round pick out of Princeton, had the Bengals 2 touchdowns from Joe Burrow against Kansas City. I think he's great, but as far as stretching the field, if you don't have T. Higgins out there and they're taking away Jamar Chase with a double team or making it a little bit harder to get the ball to Jamar Chase from a double team perspective, if you can get Jermaine Burton out there in a one-on-one situation running down the sideline, I think that can create a lot of explosive plays for you and your offense if you're Zac Taylor. So I would like to see Jermaine Burton get some more playing time out there as well. Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Factor Meals because they are the sponsor of today's show. With football season in full swing, look, I don't have time to cook. That's why I use Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? Crush your wellness goals this month with dietitian approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Head to factormeals.com/BengalsChat50 and use code BengalsChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code BengalsChat50 at factormeals.com/BengalsChat50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, let's talk a little bit about Orlando Brown Jr. as well. This is what Ben Baby put out a couple of days ago about Orlando Brown Jr. And he said 2 players have a perfect pass block win rate through the Sunday games of Week 2. Orlando Brown and Jordan Mailata of the Philadelphia Eagles. And obviously, Mailata is an incredible offensive lineman for Philadelphia. So the fact that Orlando Brown Jr. is in this company really speaks to what he's been able to do out there for Cincinnati so far through these 2 games. Now, let's explain really quickly what win rate is. Here's what ESPN has to say in regards to win rate. Our pass rush win rate metric tells us how often a pass rusher is able to beat his block within 2.5 seconds. Likewise, our pass block win rate metric conveys the rate linemen can sustain their blocks for 2.5 seconds or longer. And, Orlando Brown Jr., he really hasn't given up much of anything so far through these first 2 games. He did have, a pretty big holding penalty against the Chiefs kind of late in that game. That was really the only knock on him throughout the entirety of this season. If you're the left tackle for Joe Burrow, that comes with a lot of pressure, especially considering some of the injury history that Joe Burrow has dealt with. That position really needs to be locked down. The Bengals are paying him big-time bucks, and he really didn't fulfill that contract last season. But I think so far, a lot of people expected him to get back in the groove of things, just kind of settling into his new team, his new environment in year 2. And these first 2 games have been an outstanding representation of that growth for Orlando Brown Jr. You hear great things about him, in the locker room, being a great leader for this football team as well. So I think there's a lot of excitement that can come with Orlando Brown Jr. and the start that he has had to this 2024 campaign. So grade Orlando Brown through 2 games for us in the comments section. Another opportunity for you guys to get interactive with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. A, B, C, D, or F. Sound off for us in the comments of today's video. All right, lastly, before we get out of here, some potential improvements could be coming to Paycor Stadium and the Bengals, practice facility around the stadium. Hamilton County Commissioners met yesterday about future renovation options for the Bengals, and here are some of the images that kind of came from that as far as some of the design proposals that you might see around the Queen City. Taking a look at some of these images, I mean, they really knock your socks off. I mean, seeing this in downtown Cincinnati would be really, really special. So especially that picture there of the practice fields, considering what they're dealing with right now, to have a building right there, an indoor practice facility right by the fields would certainly be significant. And it looks very modern. And that's not something that we have seen with this franchise. You see it from a lot of teams around the league, especially some teams on the West Coast and teams that, might have ownership groups that have a lot more money than what the Bengals have. But to have this in Cincinnati, man, would it be cool? And I think also it would kind of remove some of the, criticism that the Bengals get from the national media as far as, being cheap and not going out there and spending money like the rest of the league. If they were able to do something like this, I think it would be really cool. In this Hall of Champions picture, imagine that in Paycor Stadium. That would be absolutely incredible. And by the way, this stuff comes from Joe Burrow. He's somebody that really transformed this organization. And I don't think you'd be seeing these kinds of proposals if the Bengals, hadn't had the success that they have had with Joe Burrow. So plenty of reason to be excited, and we'll see if any of this comes to fruition. Before we get out of here, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to our channel here at Bengals Breakdown. It's youtube.com/Bengals TV. We will be live on our channel for Monday Night Football as the Bengals take on the Washington Commanders at Paycor Stadium. So make sure you don't miss out on that. We're going to have a blast. Make sure you join us. So hit that sub button right now. It's youtube.com/Bengals TV.